Biden is trying to President Biden is in the process of raising that to 25%. So if you want to sell your product or service to the federal government, this is the time to do it. We know that no other entity in the world spends more than the US federal government, but more importantly, it is mandated by Congress that those 2,000 plus federal agencies have to meet a mandate of at least 23%. And as I stated earlier, President Biden is about to raise this. It's in the act of raising it to 25%, which is great. And so the obvious question you may have for me is, are those federal agencies meeting that mandate? And the answer is yes, collectively. Collectively as a whole, those 2,000 plus federal agencies are meeting that mandate by the federal government. So once again, if you ever wanted to sell your product or service to the federal government, this is the time to do it. Let's go next slide here. So the first thing you want to know is, are you a small business? And you know, the majority of businesses across the country are small. We all know that small businesses are the backbone of America. They keep America running. But if you're not sure how to determine whether or not you're a small business, you meet with your PTAC personnel, and not just here in the St. Louis area, across the country. They provide a great service, and a PTAC personnel is a procurement specialist, and they are normally managed by the state or a university here in the St. Louis, here in the state of Missouri. It's they're managed by the state, but they receive grants through the University of Columbia, Missouri. So that PTAC personnel will assist you in determining whether or not you're a small business. And that's determined by a NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System code. And I'll go to that slide next. But some of the things you need to ensure that whether or not you're a small business, the size standard, and that's once again determined by NAICS code, the business type, and all types of business, whether you're corporation CS, sole proprietorship, LLC, as long as it's a legal business, it's a product or service that the federal government will purchase, you're able to sell it to them. You must be located primarily in the United States. Size restriction, which is also determined by NAICS, and non-qualified businesses means you're outside of the US and operating, your headquarters is, and of course, non-for-profit businesses are not considered a profit or service that the federal government would purchase. Doesn't mean that at some point they may not have a contract with a non-for-profit, but right now, if you're looking as a non-for-profit to bid on contract, you're going to be in, it just won't happen. Next slide here. So North American Industry Classification Codes, right? NAICS. You hear people say, what's my NAICS? What's my NAICS? That is a 6-digit code that the federal government has decided for every product or service that they purchase. So if you're a roofer, I'm just going to make up some here. If you're a roofer, let's say it's 222000. And what you will do is you'll have a primary NAICS code. Roofing is what I do best. So my NAICS code is 222000. But I have a host of secondary codes. I don't only roof. I could do a little siding. I could do a little painting. I could do a little framing. I can work on guttering. So I will have multiple secondary NAICS codes. But what I do best is my primary NAICS code 222000. And remember, you can't be everything to everyone. We receive calls all the time. What is the federal government looking for? Well, the federal government is purchasing everything. The question is, what is it that you're good at? What is it that you're going to be competing at? Because remember, even though the US federal government purchases everything under the sun, and they purchase a lot of it, the bottom line is, I'm not the only roofer in the world, in the US. So there's a great roofer in Tennessee. There's some guy in Nebraska. There's another guy in Oklahoma that thinks he's pretty good. So he may also want to compete for that federal contract as well. So it's important that I remember, what is it that I do best? I found my niche. Roofing is my niche, and that's what I want to do. All right. So the obvious question is, are you ready to do business with the federal government? I could tell you that your profit margin will not be normally what it is when you commercial. So if your profit margin is normally 12, 13%, well, your profit margin is probably going to be about 10 or 9%. The federal government will you'll have to sharpen your pencil a little bit, but 10 and 9% is not bad. We know good and well that the federal government will definitely pay you. So you need to be able to ensure that you're willing to do the work. And most importantly, these are questions that you have to ask yourself. You know, of course, I'm going to say great things about this program, but more importantly, these are things you need to ask yourself. Are you capable of fulfilling a government contract? Do you have experience? Does the government buy what you sell? And if you're not sure about that, let's go back to that PTAC personnel. That PTAC personnel has search engines, and you can call your local SBA regardless of where you're at in the country. Call your local SBA office and say, hey, how do I get in touch with my PTAC personnel? Those are resource partners of ours, and they work hand in hand with us, and they'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction. So that PTAC personnel can let you know whether or not the federal government purchases anything in your purchases your product or service. So that lets you know right up front whether it's worth your time to invest the effort. And of course, where to find contracting opportunity. Once again, that's your PTAC personnel. How the government buys goods and services. Okay, so there's three ways: full and open competition, small business set aside, and sole source. So, and sole sources are normally reserved for business development programs like the 8A program. And I'm going to cover all of those programs here in a minute. 8A, women-owned, service-disabled vet, HubZone, those are what the federal government has. They don't have the disadvantaged business program. That comes under 8A. They don't have like the city of St. Louis, MBB or whatever it may be. So those four are the big four that the U.S. federal government has. 8A, which is a small disadvantaged business, women-owned, service-disabled vet, and HubZone. But what if you're in none of those four? Can you still sell your product or service to the federal government? And the answer is yes, as a small business at large. So as I was saying, number three, the sole source is normally set aside for business development programs such as the 8A program. Of course, that contract has to meet a certain criteria. Small business set aside. Determined by two, and full and open competition. And there you go. Here's a more detailed explanation of the two: full and open competition, level playing field with full visibility. And if you're in the big four, can you still compete for full and open competition contract? Absolutely. Set aside the rule of two. The federal government knows that big business can solve their problem, because business is all about a problem. I have a hole in my roof. That's a problem. Can you solve it? Yes, come solve my problem. So the federal government realizes that big business, there's all kind of big time roofers across the country that can fix this for them. But in order to set this aside for the small business program, they have to have two firms across the country that can do it. So if you're in the St. Louis area, you'll know exactly what I talk about. The old courthouse downtown, where everyone's been there. It's a historical site. You know, visitors go there. Everyone takes their family there on the way to the Cardinal game, whatever the case may be. But it has a hole in the roof. So they want to set this aside for small business. They put out the solicitation, the marketing process, and they need at least two firms. It's called a source of salt. They need at least two firms across the country that says, hey, I can do that work. I can do that. I can. So you submit your information, and now the federal government, which is a check and balance to ensure that they're meeting their requirement, they say, yes, we can put this in. We can set this aside for small businesses. Okay. Sole source. One firm can provide this product or service, or you have been marketing to this organization for a while, and you've got them to realize that you're the person that can solve their problem, that you can provide that technology information or whatever. You can help them with contract support, or you could dredge the Mississippi for the U.S. Corps of Engineers, whatever the case may be. They have decided that you're in the 8A program, business development program. The contract meets the criteria to be set aside. So, I mean, to be sole source to you, and there you go. This contract is going to be yours. So, but remember, on full and open competition and set aside, that's exactly what it is. You're competing against a lot of other firms across the country. And when you're in the big four, or you're selling your product or service to the federal government, and we realize that the US federal government purchases everything, don't think that just because you're in the program that contracts are going to start falling out of the sky at you. No, you still have to compete. This is a all four of those programs, and even when you're just a small business at large, if you're not in the big four, you still have to market to the US federal government. Okay? Market your product or service to the US federal government and put your best foot forward. So here we go. So for 23% is set aside for U.S. small businesses, 5% for women-owned, 5% is for 8A small disadvantaged business, 3% for hub zone, 3% for service disabled vet. That's only 16%. Where's the other 7%? For small businesses at large. So all those other firms that don't meet any of those criteria, you can still sell your product or service to the U.S. federal government as a small business at large. And it's obvious it's happening because, as I stated earlier, just in the St. Louis area alone, 145.7 billion the previous fiscal year. So those are a lot of firms, and I know for certain that those four did not, that kind of money did not come through just those four categories that I mentioned there. And as I stated earlier, that 25% is being pushed right now by President Biden for a U.S. federal agency to meet that goal. Okay, research your market. Know what agencies buy, okay? And find your niche. I already talked about understanding areas of government spending, knowing your competition and their contracts.
Gary, I think we may have lost you. Okay, we cannot hear you. We may have to have you log out and log back in. Sorry, folks, for the little interruption here. Hopefully we can get this going back in a second. Everybody, I do apologize for the inconvenience here with technology. Sometimes we have glitches. So hopefully we can get Gary back in just a moment. Hi, I am so sorry. I see there's a question here wanting to know if the class is over. We've had a technical glitch, and I'm hoping that Gary will be able to join us again very soon. So thank you for your continued patience. I do apologize.
Good. Can y'all still hear me? Hello? Hello?
Gary, can you
Yes,
hear us? All
I
right, welcome
can.
back.
Oh my God. Right in the middle. Okay. Bear with me, guys. It's Friday. Okay. I'm going to go. So can you still see my screen? No, let me share it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Share.
There we go. All right.
Okay.
We
So
are.
I'm gonna go right back to research your market. Okay. And is that where you guys last heard me?
This was the slide that we
Yes.
lost you on.
Okay,
Yes.
great, great. Thanks for sticking with me, people. I really appreciate it. Okay, so research your market. Know what agency buy your product or services. Find your niche. We talked about that. What is it that you do best? You can't be everything to everyone. I roof, so that's what I want to sell. That's my primary next code. That's what I want to sell to the U.S. federal government. Understanding areas of government spending. Know your competition. So the SBA has a host of webinars. We have about, and I'm talking nationwide, we have about 9 or 10 small business providers who sell their product or service to the U.S. federal government. And what product or service are they selling? They're selling knowledge. They're selling how to understand government spending, how to market your product or service, how to do this, I have a problem with the contracting officer, so forth and so on. So these webinars are free. We all know that knowledge is power. So we want to invest in you and give you as much knowledge as possible. These webinars are free. All you have to do is sign up for them. They're in the evenings because, in the past we were having the webinars during the workday, and we've had so many small businesses say, yeah, that was a great webinar. Too bad I couldn't catch all of it because I was on top of a roof. I was in the middle of the workday. You want to educate us in the afternoon. Help us with this by educating us in the afternoon or on the weekend. So these webinars are provided by different 9 to 10 different firms across the country throughout the day on a host of subjects to provide a lot of knowledge for you to help you do business with the federal government. But not only do we have webinars, our PTAC, our resource partners, our PTAC personnel have a great webinars as well called Govology that also help you educate yourself on how to market your business to the federal government, how to be prepared to sell your product or service to the federal government. So all this stuff on researching your market. Where can I go, Gary, to help me get going in this direction? Your PTAC personnel has great search engines that can help you understand your product or service, find your niche competition. There are a host of websites that I'm going to show you later here that US Gov spends. And trust me, as you saw me struggle here to get back on this webinar, if I'm able to manipulate that platform to get information, you'll be able to make it do wonders for you because that's a platform on US Gov Spend. That's the platform I say is most important for me. For me, if I was a small business, because guess what? I can go into that platform and find out all the different contracts that US government agencies have already sent out. These are contracts that are already out there. These are not contracts that are coming, but out of those, I can get a lot of historical information. I can find out what agencies are spending in my NAICS code. I can find out what type of money they're spending. I can find out what small business won that contract. What type of business was that business? Was it a women-owned, service-disabled vet, hub zone, or just a small business at large? Do they plan on graduating from the 8A program soon? And on and on. So all that gives me a good historical data to start putting my marketing together because you want to know who your competition is because too many times we shy away from our competition. No, you want to keep them close to you. Keep your friends close, keep your competition closer because at some point you want to be able to market with them, profit with them. You want to be able to share a project with them, or you just want to do some sub work for them. So always know your competition and know what they're doing. All right, let's go to the next slide. Understanding your customer, influences, small business, SBA point of contact, buyers, end user. That is all information that you have to start to understand to start building a good marketing product, to start building a good marketing foundation in order to sell your product. All right. How to find decision makers. Call and make an appointment. Network and contact a small business specialist. Submit an invitation to bid. And not only that, not only here in the St. Louis area, across the country, small business, different agencies, resource partners of ours, such as SCORE, such as the Veteran Business Resource Center, such as the Small Business Development Center, such as the Women Business Center, all of our resource partners, we have matchmaking events where we put you in front of those federal agencies that may be purchasing your product or service. So there's different matchmaking events throughout the year. Once again, I realize you all may not be here in the St. Louis area. So contact your local SBA office and say, hey, are you guys hosting a matchmaking event anytime soon? I know that the St. Louis district office probably won't be hosting our next matchmaking event until February next year, and we're just starting to get the planning process going here. And so as soon as that comes out, you can go to our website and start looking for that. All right. Oh, those are Procurement Assistance, and those are some of the websites and platforms that I was talking about that would help you grow. But how do I get signed up for those, Gary? How to go to your PTAC personnel? I must have said PTAC 100 times already. Why are they so important? Because not only can they help you with federal government contract, city, state, county, small municipality, so forth and so on. They are just a host of knowledge. They're a great resource partner. They love doing research, helping you get going. This is what they're good at, and that's what you should be taking advantage of. Okay, and you can see all the different there that can help you going. So you want to be subcontracting. You could go to the subcontracting networking system, on and on and on. System award management. That's very important. Used to be in the federal government. If I wanted to do business with the Department of Defense, I had to sign up with DoD. If I wanted to do work with the let's say U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, I had to sign up with the Corps of Engineers. If I wanted to do work with the Defense Logistic Agency, I had to sign up with them. Well, there's 2,000 plus federal agencies. And if I have a product or service that I want to sell to all of them, I have to sign up with 2,000 plus federal agencies? No. Now you just sign up with SAMS, and that tells System Award Management, that tells all the other agencies that this particular small business is ready to do business with the federal government. They've signed up, they have their profile sheet up there, and now that I'm in SAMS, I'm going to go to Dynamic Small Business Search System, and that's very important because that's where I'm going to put up my capability statement. So let's say that a federal agency is looking for a roofer in the greater St. Louis area, and they want it to be women-owned, and they want them, so they can go into Dynamic Small Business Search System, put in that criteria, and all those firms that meet that criteria will that are already registered to do business with the federal government will pop up. And so that's how a federal agency can find you, as opposed to you always finding them. And they say, oh, wow, look, there's about 6 women-owned roofing companies there in the St. Louis area that are already doing work with the federal government. Let me go in there and take a look and see at their capability statements, so forth and so on. Okay. Always remember, everyone wants to be the prime on everything. I want to be the big, but I want to be the big guy. I want to be the person in charge. But you get your foot started in subcontracting. Subcontracting is a great way to get started. And remember, let's say that a big business, a commercial big business gets a federal contract to do whatever it may be. They also have to meet that criteria 5, 5, 3, 3, and 7. So they can also use subcontracting. So let's say a big business, let's think of one here. Oh, Boeing here in the St. Louis area, Boeing, who builds planes and also builds fighter jets for the U.S. federal government. So they received another big contract for the U.S. federal government to build the latest, greatest fighter jet, the Stealth 7000 or whatever it may be. But they also have to meet that criteria, as I stated. So they're going to use small business contractors, whether it be supplying them with tools, supplying them with certain screws, or whatever the case may be. So be willing to subcontract to get your foot in the door on the U.S. federal government side. And so here in the St. Louis district, there's only about 8 across the nation. We're so fortunate that the person who actually does the subcontracting for such big firms, like I stated here, like the Boeing and so forth, commercial entities that receive government contract are meeting the subcontracting responsibility. That's what she do. She is actually housed in our office here in the St. Louis district. So if there's something that and her name is Miss Deb Crumity. Deb Crumity, and you can look her up on the SBA website, Deb Crumity. And if you think that's something that you may be interested in, and she actually has the whole Midwest section. So she's here in the St. Louis district. She has Missouri, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, just that little U of Midwest, the Plain States there, and that's her area of responsibility. All right. Advantages of registering with FBO, Fed Biz Ops, very important because I'm a roofer. I only want to know about roofing contracts and maybe some of my uh, my secondary net codes. Remember, I said my primary is roofing. This is what I do best. That's my primary. I have a whole host of secondary, so I only want to know about uh, solicitations that are coming from those 2,000 plus federal agencies in what I do, not what everyone else does. I don't necessarily care about technology or hauling rocks or dirt. That's not what I do. So I can read the advantages. One of the biggest advantages that I find FBO is that they can narrow that criteria down to ensure that I only receive solicitation in the areas of my next code that are most important to me. And so that keeps me concentrated on what I do and what I do best. Okay. So now I'm gonna cover shortly. I'm not gonna go into great detail because we're halfway through the PowerPoint presentation, as you can see. So I'm going to cover the big four throughout the year. As a matter of fact, yesterday there was an 8A and Hub Zone presentation that went into great detail. We do them every month here in the St. Louis District Office, the Women-Owned Business Center, and of course we have the Veteran Regional Business Center that covers all the service disabled vet programs. So if there's more information you would need about those, definitely contact me offline and I can get you connected to the next webinar for those. So right now the 8A Business Development Program, unlike the other big four, 8A Business Development Program is a 9-year program. That's the most important thing that you need to take away from this. And you can't graduate after being in the program for 9 years and come back and say, okay, I was in the program for 9 years doing roofing. I'm going to graduate, wait a couple of years, come back, and I'm going to come back in one of my secondaries, which is putting up siding or whatever. I'm going to sell siding to the U.S. federal government now. No, you get one bite at the apple. The other three do not have time limits on there. As long as you meet the criteria, you can remain in those programs forever. Not the case for the 8A program. And what does it take to be in the 8A program? And this is going to be, you're going to see this slide over and over with the majority of them. A good commercial and government balance, marketing ability, there it is, self-marketing, all of them. Understand the proper next code. And in the 8A program, you must be socially and economically disadvantaged, 100% control your business, 51% ownership the entire time you're in the program. And most importantly, because it's a 9-year program, you must have the ability to compete. The ability to compete, because those 9 years go fast. And as I stated earlier, you can't graduate and come back and get back in the program after a couple of years. All of that is done through certifysba.gov. All right. And that's done Division of Program Certification Eligibility Office. There's one on the west side of the Mississippi in San Francisco. There's one on the east side of the Mississippi, that's in Baltimore. So if your business is on the east side of the Mississippi, you would send your application would go to Baltimore. If you're on the west side, it would go to San Francisco. The DPCE, Division Program Certification Eligibility Office, something they did there great was that they assigned one person to you, and that person's job is to ensure that your application is complete before it's sent to headquarters for final approval. So that person that is working with you, they're not the adversary. Their job is to ensure that you have a good, solid application. So pay attention to them if you decide to go into the 8A program and listen to their input. They provide great input to make sure that that application is complete. A quick synopsis of the program: ownership, 51% ownership the entire time you're in the program. Control and management, 100% control. We don't want to see you as a pass-through. Potential to be successful. You have to be able to compete, good character, and that's the case throughout all the programs. You must have good character if you're selling your product or service to the federal government. And what does that mean? No, the U.S. federal government realizes that life and business is cyclic. Everything has not always gone your way. Everything has not always been hunky-dory. So what they will do is hire third-party investigative service, which is a fancy way of saying that they're going to hire a small business has done background investigation services. That's what they do for a product or service. And they're going to hire them to do a background investigation on you, and they'll find out exactly what happened. It does not prevent you from getting in the program if you tell it up front. But if it's found out through a third-party investigative service, they may think that you may be hiding something. So always tell everyone, tell it up front. Let the chips fall where they may. It can't prevent you from getting in the program. All right. Contract information. Understand your contract information. Remember, I talked about PTAC can help you understand that. All the different webinars that we have. We have the Small Business Development Center that can help you understand how to read financials, so forth and so on, and understand all the small business programs that can help you grow. Okay, we're not the only ones here in the St. Louis district and across the country. Here in the St. Louis district, and maybe I'm being a little biased, there's a lot of support for small businesses, and such as the Missouri Eastern Legal Service, such as the SLU Law School. No, they're not resource partners of ours, but we refer firms to them all the time. So you're needing some legal assistance, but you don't want to pay $150 per half hour. So those two entities are more than willing to provide that legal service to you at a small cost. So if something needs to be filed with the U.S. Court of Appeals or whatever, and it costs $37, that's what you're going to pay, $37. You're not going to pay the $150 per half hour plus the $37. So and I can go on and on and on. There's a lot of small business support system throughout the greater St. Louis area, throughout the Eastern District of Missouri, because that's what the St. Louis SBA office is responsible for. We split the state right down the middle with Kansas City. Kansas City has the western half, St. Louis has the eastern half. Women-owned small business, WSOP program. Okay. And there's that slide again. 51% ownership, must be the highest officer, paid officer, right? I don't know how many times I get called, and actually I have phones today where I get a call from someone, a guy say, hey, I'm going to put the business in my wife's name. Does that qualify as to be a WSB? Well, is she really running the business? So, just because you put it in your wife's name doesn't necessarily mean it qualifies as WSB. She has to, because what happened is the people will come out and they will have a sit down with her, and they will ask her everything from A to Z on that particular business. And if she's not able to answer it, there you go. So manage daily operations, be the person in charge. No minimum time to be in business. Managerial experience is most important, and make sure you understand the proper NAICS code. So in WSOB, and the federal government is starting to expand that, they have certain NAICS codes for women-owned small businesses that they were, and they're expanding that to include more NAICS code, because why? Women-owned small business is as biggest growing entity of small businesses across the country. Women are taking charge. So let's give them more opportunity to sell their product or service to the federal government. So take advantage of that. And as the federal government starts to expand those NAICS codes that they want to purchase that product or service in, and if you're a woman-owned small business and you think you might have that product or service, check with your PTAC personnel to see if that's something you want to do, if that product or service is being bought by the federal government. Economically disadvantaged, and these are some of the financial barriers that you have to meet in order to be in this program. Your personal adjusted net worth needs to be less than $750,000. And what do I mean by adjusted net worth? That means that the equity in your business, the equity in your primary home, not if you have multiple homes, just your primary home, does not count against you. Any monies that you have saved in your Roth IRA or 401k or just a regular IRA does not count against you. So all those things, and I believe the majority of it, our personal net worth, adjusted net worth, easily meets less than $750,000. Have you paid yourself more than $350,000 a year for the last 3 consecutive years? That's a good problem to have. But if you have, you're considered not eligible for the program. and your overall assets must be less than $6 million, okay? So all the things, all your assets, personal assets must be less than, and business assets must be less than $6 million. And remember, the federal government comes out every year with a depreciation chart that all you have to do is depreciate. And once again, I'm sure that our fair market value for the majority of it easily meets the $6 million or less. There's the process, register in SAMS. And here's some third-party certifiers that the SBA approves of. The El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, National Women Business Owners Corporation, U.S. Women Chamber of Commerce, Women Business Enterprise National Council. They can help you with that. And regardless, you can do it yourself. There's no doubt in my mind that you're able to fill out the application yourself and get it approved. But remember, there is always help for you, and those are four that they approve of, okay? Set aside contracts. There it is, WOSB and economically disadvantaged WOSB. NAIC codes assigned, and I just talked about that. They're expanding those particular NAICS code to give you a bigger opportunity as we speak, to give you a bigger opportunity to sell your product or service to the federal government. The rule of two still applies, and the contract must be awarded at a fair market price. Remember earlier I talked about that the federal government, your profit margin will not be the same. The U.S. federal government wants you to be in business. We want you to make a profit, because if you don't make a profit, you can't stay in business. And therefore, what do they do the next time they want to purchase that? Well, look, we ran you out of business because we shortchanged you. No, they want you to make a profit, but remember, your profit margin will not be the same as if you were selling it to a commercial entity. Service Disabled Veteran, that's the third program I'm going to cover here. And this program, to be determined whether or not, and it's in the process as I speak, to be determined whether or not you are a service disabled vet. And trust me, I understand how that works. I'm a retired U.S. Army officer, spent 22 years in the military, go Army, beat Navy, and I am a service disabled vet. And so the SBA is taking over that. The VA will no longer be processing those applications to say, hey, I'm a service disabled veteran owned small business program. The SBA is taking over that. The process should be here shortly. And when I say shortly, I think before this first quarter is over, we're in the first quarter of the fiscal year. I think before the first quarter is over, the torch is going to be passed to the SBA to take over that application process. All right. Qualify for set aside opportunity, build capacity and grow, establish joint venture. And this is another one that, remember I said collectively, that are those federal agencies meeting those requirements? Well, yes, they are. But remember, collectively, the VA gives all their contracts to service disabled vet and veteran owned small businesses first. And they say, so be it. They get in trouble every year by Congress for not meeting it. They said that's okay. We'll take that lashing and move on. So the VA takes care of their veterans, service disabled veterans, and veteran-owned small businesses first. And then if there's a contract out there or something that those particular small businesses can't provide, then they'll spread it out to other firms, okay, to other small, to women-owned or 8A or HUBZone or whatever the case may be. All right. Once again, there's the requirements, 51% ownership, highest officer. We don't want to pass through. I mentioned that earlier. Understand you must have the correct proper NAICS code, great managerial experience, manage daily operations, manage your daily operations, be the person in charge. And the last one, HUBZone, historically underutilized business zone. And how's that determined? Every 10 years during the census, that's how that HUBZone map is drawn. So, and you say, well, wow, this is crazy. I'm in my partner, his business is right next door to me. He's in the HUBZone and I'm not. I know that map can be really crazy. So what you need to do is you need to make sure to qualify to be in a HUBZone, and they're in the rural areas or in the inner city, wherever they may be. type your address in. Type your address in to ensure that, yes, my business is located in a hub zone. And there's the criteria again, pretty much the same thing. Ownership, the principal office must be located in a hub zone. 35% of your employees must reside in a hub zone, not necessarily in the hub zone that the business is in. You must, of course, meet the size standard of a small business. Hub zone locations are very important. And so there's the rules to be eligible for a hub zone. And there's the map, hub zone help. And they still have that call every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern if you want to talk about a hub zone. But the first thing I would always do, just go, you can even go to Google, go to hub zone, type in hub zone, SBA hub zone. And when that pops up, it'll be a little address thing up there. Type your address in and it would clearly turn green or red. It'll say green, yes, this firm is in a hub zone. No, this firm is not in a hub zone. Wow. That was the last slide. Woo! No more technology problem. So I hope everyone can hear me. I'm ready to take some questions. Shoot them at me.
Okay, Gary, it looks like we do have a few questions that have come through the chat. The
Okay.
first one is, can you explain about set aside rule of 2 and subcontracting limitation?
Yes, set aside rule of 2. So I'm a federal agency and I want to make sure that the federal government, and this is a way that they checks and balances. Because remember, the federal agency knows that big business can solve their problem without a doubt. So, but I am mandated to make sure that I can put this in small business. So what's the first thing I do? I sit out a sources sought. That's the first part. I'm the federal agency. I'm sending out a sources sought and I'm doing my marketability. And this is my first step. And in that sources sought, I say, we are considering putting a roof on the old courthouse and we're looking to possibly put this as a women-owned contract. Do I have any women-owned businesses out there that could put this roof on the old courthouse? Is this type of roof to give some detail? Please submit this information by a certain timeline. So I need at least 2 firms across the country to say that yes, they're able to do that. And then now as the SBA, as the federal agency, I'm able to put this into the small business circuit. Okay. I'm good because I got to meet that mandate. Every year I got to meet that mandate. All right. So it behooves me. Now let me go a step further. Let's say that I put this in and it's a woman-owned business. She meets the rules of woman-owned business. But guess what? Her business is also located in a hub zone and she's a veteran and she just happens to still be in the 8A program. That federal agency gets credit for all 4, even though this contract was designated for women-owned business because they were able to get credit for all 4 of those. So that's another way the federal agencies, they call them a contracting officer's dream. Okay. And what was the second part of that question?
The second part was, can you explain about subcontracting limitation?
Yes. So if I receive this contract, there's only a certain amount, and I believe if it's a joint venture, I have to do at least 51% of the work. But if I'm going to subcontract out, and the contracting officer will make it very clear, I'm going to contract. I received this contract. I'm going to dredge the Mississippi from the port. I don't know, from here to St. John, Missouri. So for those of you who are not in the St. Louis area, St. John is south of St. Louis, but it's still the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the St. Louis district is responsible from that area as well, all the way down to Arkansas. So with that being said, I got to clean that Mississippi. I got to dredge that. And I know nothing about that. I'm going to dredge that. But I want to subcontract some of that out. The subcontracting limitations will be stated. And if you're not sure, that's when you read the contract and or you start talking to your PTAC personnel to make sure that you meet those subcontracting limitations. If I'm going to subcontract out some of that work, I don't want to be subcontracting so much of the work out that I exceed the limitations, and therefore I mess up the contract and get a bad report card. So it'll make it very clear how much. The percentages I don't have on the top of my head, unfortunately. I would have to look those up. But that is something that if you have a little time over the weekend, you could just Google SBA subcontracting limitations, and it'll come up, and it'll make it very clear as to what they can be, what the percentages are.
Great. Okay, so we are running very short on time. There were several people who wanted to know how to get a hold of this presentation, and I just want to let everyone know that everyone who was registered will be receiving an email with all kinds of information about the expo, including how to see this video, and the recording will also be put on YouTube. And there were a couple people, Gary, who wanted to know if they could contact you specifically, or if there was a way to get additional help from
Oh,
your
absolutely.
organization.
The SBA. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're working we go into the office one day a week, and there's some days that there's no one in the office. So the best way to contact me is by my work cell phone at 314-532-0571. And or you can contact me at gary.alexander, that's GARY.Alexander @sba.gov.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you all for your patience during this little technical glitch. I know it was a bit of an inconvenience, but we really do appreciate you all sticking with us. And unfortunately, we do have to end it here. So you will be able to see this presentation online, and you will receive email with information about how to get all of the resources presented. And we hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all so much for attending.
Bye-bye.